Welcome back, word nerds. Ready for another deep dive?
Always. What intriguing corner of language are we exploring today?
Well, this time we're getting into some English vocabulary that's got me, well, a little puzzled and intrigued.
Oh, I love a good word puzzle. Lay it on me.
Okay, so we've got enigmatic, gobbledygook,
Ooh, those are good ones.
cheesed off, and serene.
Quite the mix. From mysterious to frustrating to peaceful, I'm in.
Me too.
Okay.
And it's fitting, don't you think? Starting with enigmatic when we're diving into language itself. Learning new words can sometimes feel like deciphering a code.
Totally. And enigmatic really captures that sense of mystery, of something deliberately hidden. It's not just confusing, it's intriguing. You want to figure it out.
Like a puzzle. I was thinking about art. Like, sometimes a painting is more powerful because it's not totally clear what it means. The viewer has to work a bit. Is it the same with language?
Absolutely. Think of those ambiguous song lyrics or poems. They invite you to bring your own interpretations. It's a collaboration between the creator and the audience.
Right. The meaning isn't just handed to you. You have to engage with it.
Exactly. And it's not just about being vague. Enigmatic implies that there is a deeper meaning, but it's veiled, like a riddle waiting to be solved.
Speaking of riddles, sometimes I feel like language is less like art and more like, well, gobbledygook. Have you ever read something and thought, did they do that on purpose to confuse me?
Oh, all the time. Especially legal documents or technical manuals. It's like they're trying to hide something behind a wall of jargon.
Right. And it's so frustrating. Do you think they actually want us to be confused?
Well, it certainly can create a power imbalance, can it? If only certain people understand the language, they hold the knowledge, and therefore the power.
That's a good point. But you know what I love about gobbledygook? It's such a wonderfully evocative word. It sounds just like what it means.
It really does. It's like a turkey gobbling nonsense.
That's a perfect image. Okay, enough confusion. Let's get into some slang that's not confusing, but maybe a little, well, annoying. Cheesed off. I love that one. It's so British.
It is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I love how British slang can often use humor to talk about negative emotions, like, yeah, this is rubbish, but let's not get too dramatic about it.
Yeah. You can vent your frustration without getting too serious. It's disarming in a way.
It is. It kind of acknowledges that life throws us curveballs, but we can choose how we react. No need to get all bent out of shape.
Exactly. But back to cheesed off specifically. Any theories on where that came from?
It's a bit murky, but one theory links it to the smell of old, unpleasant cheese. Like, being in a bad mood is as appealing as a stinky cheddar.
Okay, that makes sense. We've all smelled that cheese. All right, I think we need a palate cleanser after all that gobbledygook and stinker cheese. Let's talk about serene.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's better, isn't it? It just evokes a sense of peace and tranquility, like a quiet lake at sunset.
Yes. That calm stillness. Those nature documentaries always get me. The sweeping shots of landscapes.
They really do transport you, don't they? And serene isn't just about a lack of noise or activity. It's a state of mind.
It's like inner peace, being totally present in the moment. And it comes from the Latin word for clear or unclouded.
That's right. Like a clear sky or a calm, still mind. No disturbances.
I love how those word origins can reveal so much. Okay, we've just scratched the surface here, but this is already fascinating.
I'm telling you, etymology is like a rabbit hole. Once you start digging, you never know what you'll find.
It's true. Every word has a story, a whole history behind it. Okay, ready for another one? Let's get a little darker this time. How about macabre?
Ooh, yeah. That one's got a certain creepiness to it. It's not just scary, it's more like a fascination with the morbid.
Like those people who slow down to look at car accidents.
Maybe. Or like, we enjoy horror movies, even though they're meant to unsettle us. There's something about the macabre that draws us in, even if it's a bit disturbing.
It's like we're testing our own boundaries, right? Seeing how much darkness we can handle.
I think there's something to that. It's a way to confront difficult things, like death or violence, but in a safe way.
A controlled dose of the scary stuff. But speaking of scary, macabre itself has a pretty creepy origin, right?
It does. It comes from this medieval French play called The Dance of Death. Imagine, like, skeletons and regular people all dancing together. This whole theme of death being ever present, even in the midst of life.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely macabre. I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Yeah.
We need a lighter word after that. Something more whimsical.
Oh, I love that one. It's so light and playful, like full of imagination and a bit of mischief.
Right. And it makes me think children are so naturally whimsical. They haven't learned to be all serious and logical yet. Do you think that's part of what makes kids so creative?
Totally. They see the world with fresh eyes and everything is possible. They're not limited by what should be.
It's like they invent their own rules. And adults, I think we need to recapture some of that whimsy.
I agree. It keeps us open to new ideas, to seeing the world from different angles. It's about not taking ourselves too seriously.
That's a good reminder. Okay, enough whimsy for now. Let's get a little bolder. How about this one? Throw down the gauntlet. It's like a challenge, right?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but it's more than just disagreeing with someone. It's a deliberate provocation, like, I dare you to step up.
It makes me think of those old duels, the knights throwing down their gloves.
That's exactly where it comes from. It was a formal way of demanding satisfaction.
So it's a pretty serious phrase, not something you'd use lightly.
No, definitely not. It's about drawing a line in the sand, standing your ground.
Which is important, but sometimes those battles are internal too. Like when we have to be honest with ourselves about how we're feeling, that's where wear your heart on your sleeve comes in.
Ah, yes. That one's about being open with your emotions, letting people see your true self.
Which can be scary. I admire people who can do that easily, but I tend to be more guarded. Do you think that's a bad thing?
Not necessarily. It's about finding what feels authentic to you. Some
Mhm.
people are naturally more expressive, others are more private. Neither is wrong.
It's about being true to yourself, basically.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, wear your heart on your sleeve comes from this romantic tradition. Knights would wear tokens from their ladies on their sleeves as a public display of their love.
Aw, that's kind of sweet. So it started as a good thing, not a weakness.
Right. It was a way to honor your feelings, to be proud of them.
I like that perspective. Okay, enough with the mushy stuff. Time to paint the town red. What do you think of when you hear that one?
Oh, definitely a night out. Fun, excitement, maybe a little mischief.
Right, like a wild party or celebrating a big win. But I also think you can paint the town red in a more low-key way, you know?
Oh, yeah, totally. Like exploring a new place with friends, trying all the restaurants,
Exactly. It's about embracing that feeling of joy and adventure.
and letting loose a little, breaking out of your routine.
Do you think there's any truth to the idea that it comes from people literally painting things red?
It's probably more legend than fact, but it's a fun image.
I'm going to choose to believe it. Okay, let's get strategic for a minute. What about play your cards right? It sounds so calculating.
It does, doesn't it? It implies that you have a plan, that you're thinking ahead, making smart moves to get what you want.
Like a game of chess. But life isn't always so predictable, is it?
True. But I think the idea is that even when things are uncertain, you can still make choices that increase your chances of success.
So it's not about controlling everything, but about making the most of the hand you're dealt.
Right. Recognizing your strengths, minimizing risks, and sometimes taking a gamble when it feels right.
I like that, but sometimes you have to look beyond the obvious, like read between the lines. It's about picking up on those subtle cues.
Yes. It's about understanding what's not being said as much as what I ask, like body language, tone of voice,
Yeah.
those unspoken messages.
It's like being a detective. You have to look for clues and piece together the real story.
And it's not just about being suspicious, it's also about empathy, trying to understand someone else's perspective.
Because what they're saying might not be the whole truth, or even what they really mean.
Exactly. We all have layers, and sometimes we don't say what we really feel.
Okay, time for a confession. I'm the queen of putting my foot in my mouth. Have you ever said something and instantly regretted it?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
It's like my brain disconnects from my mouth for a second, and then cringe.
It's the worst, especially in those situations where you really want to make a good impression.
Ugh, job interviews, first dates. It's like the pressure makes you blurt out the most awkward things.
But I think everyone does it. It's part of being human.
Definitely. We're not perfect, and sometimes our words just come out wrong.
It's about learning to laugh it off,
Yeah.
right? And maybe thinking a little harder before we speak.
Good advice.
Mm.
But sometimes you have to speak up, even when it's hard. That's where stick to your guns comes in.
Oh, that's a good one. It's about having the courage of your convictions, not backing down when you believe in something.
Exactly. Even when everyone else is telling you you're wrong.
It makes me think of those historical figures who fought for what they believed in, even when it was dangerous.
They had that unwavering belief in their cause, even when it was unpopular.
It's inspiring, isn't it, to think we all have that potential for strength within us.
We do. And sometimes that strength shows up in unexpected ways, like when someone steals the show.
Ooh, yeah. That's about having that it factor, that charisma that just draws everyone's attention.
It's not always intentional either. It's like their energy just takes over the room.
I've seen that happen with performers. They're just so captivating, you can't take your eyes off them.
But you can steal the show in other ways too,
Yeah.
like giving an amazing presentation or even just telling a really good story
It's about having that spark that makes you stand out.
and being authentic.